The air shimmered with an unnatural heat as the alien queen, her form both regal and terrifying, strode into the arena. Her elongated limbs moved with a fluid grace that defied understanding, each step resonating like distant thunder against the metallic floor. She was clad in armor forged from materials unknown to human science. Gleaming plates of obsidian-like substance interwoven with veins of molten gold that pulsed faintly, as though alive. Her presence commanded awe, fear, and perhaps even reverence from those who dared look upon her. Around her, the humans stood rigid, their own armor clanking softly as they shifted uneasily under her piercing gaze. To them, she was not just another adversary. She was a symbol of everything they had been fighting against for years, a being whose kind had raised planets, enslaved species, and laughed at the futility of resistance. And yet, here she was now, captured, not by force but through betrayal within her own ranks, and brought before these fragile, short-lived creatures who called themselves soldiers. Her laughter rang out first, a sound that sent shivers down spines hardened by battle. It wasn't cruel or mocking, not entirely. There was something almost indulgent about it, as if she found amusement in the absurdity of their defiance. She tilted her head slightly, her luminous eyes scanning the assembled warriors with an expression akin to curiosity mingled with disdain. "You think this tin will protect you?" she asked, her voice smooth and melodic despite its edge. "Your feeble constructs are no match for what I've seen among my kind." She reached out then, her long fingers brushing against one soldier's chest plate. The gesture was deliberate, almost playful, yet carried an undeniable weight of authority. The soldier flinched instinctively but held his ground, swallowing hard as he met her gaze. His armor gleamed dully under the harsh lighting, its surface marred by scratches and scorch marks earned in countless skirmishes. To him, it represented survival, resilience, the only thing standing between him and certain death. But to her, it seemed little more than a child's toy. "Tell me," she continued, her tone shifting ever so slightly, becoming more contemplative, "what do you hope to achieve? Do you truly believe your pitiful constructs can withstand the might of someone such as myself?" She straightened, taking a step back to regard them all with a sweep of her hand. "Look at yourselves. Fragile bodies encased in brittle shells, trembling beneath the weight of your own insignificance." Her words stung, cutting deeper than any blade could have. Each syllable dripped with truth, forcing them to confront the reality of their situation. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and utterly foreign to the world they sought to reclaim. Yet there was no fear in their eyes, only resolve, a quiet determination born of desperation and duty. One by one, they tightened their grips on their weapons, refusing to let her see how much her taunts affected them. But among them stood one figure who didn't flinch, didn't waver. He was taller than most, his frame broad and imposing even beneath layers of scarred armor. His helmet obscured his face, leaving only his jawline visible, a line of gritted teeth and tense muscle. Something about him seemed different, apart from the others. Where his comrades radiated anger or frustration, he exuded calmness, control. His silence spoke volumes, drawing the queen's attention like moths to flame. "You," she said, pointing at him with a clawed finger. "You're different. What is it about you that makes you stand apart?" For a moment, he said nothing, merely holding her gaze through the visor of his helmet. Then, without warning, he removed it, revealing a face weathered by time and conflict. Scars crisscrossed his skin, mementos of battles fought and survived. His eyes, however, burned with intensity, sharp, intelligent, unyielding. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady, carrying none of the bravado she might have expected. "Strength isn't measured by what we wear," he replied simply, his words hanging heavy in the air. "It's measured by what we endure." Her laughter faltered briefly, replaced by a flicker of intrigue. For all her power, for all her arrogance, she recognized challenge when she saw it. This human intrigued her, unsettled her in ways she couldn't quite articulate. Perhaps it was the way he carried himself, as though he knew something she didn't. Or perhaps it was the fire in his eyes, the same fire that had driven countless others to rise up against her kind. "Very well," she said after a pause, her lips curling into a sly smile. "Let us test your claim. If strength lies beyond appearances, prove it to me. Show me what lies beneath your shell." With a wave of her hand, she gestured toward the center of the arena, where a circular platform rose silently from the ground. "We shall settle this here, in combat. No weapons, no tricks. Just you and me." A murmur rippled through the gathered humans, disbelief mixing with apprehension. None of them had witnessed such a spectacle before, an alien queen willing to engage in single combat with a mere soldier. Was it bravery or hubris? Either way, the stakes were clear. Failure meant humiliation, possibly worse. Victory, on the other hand, offered something far more elusive: respect, perhaps even acknowledgement of equality. Without hesitation, the soldier stepped forward, removing pieces of his armor as he went. Each discarded piece clattered to the ground, exposing flesh marked by scars and calloused hands shaped by years of hardship. By the time he reached the platform, he wore little more than a tattered undersuit. His body lean but powerful, every sinew honed by relentless training and brutal experience. The queen followed suit, shedding her ornate armor with practiced ease. Beneath it, she revealed a lithe, muscular frame covered in iridescent scales that shimmered like liquid metal. Every movement she made was precise, predatory, exuding confidence that bordered on arrogance. As they faced each other atop the platform, the contrast between them was stark: one raw, primal strength, the other refined, elegant power. And then, without ceremony, the fight began. The clash erupted with a ferocity that left the spectators breathless. The queen lunged first, her movements a blur of speed and precision as she aimed a strike at the soldier's exposed midsection. He twisted just in time, narrowly avoiding her razor-sharp claws, which sliced through the air with a sound like tearing silk. His counterattack came swiftly, a punch delivered with the full weight of his body behind it, but she sidestepped with effortless grace, her laughter ringing out once more, this time tinged with genuine surprise. "You're faster than I anticipated," she admitted, circling him with predatory intent. "But speed alone won't save you." He didn't respond verbally, conserving his energy for the battle ahead. Instead, he focused on reading her movements, searching for patterns or weaknesses. Her strikes were unpredictable, each one designed to disorient and overwhelm. A swipe aimed at his throat forced him to duck low, while a sweeping kick nearly sent him sprawling. Yet he remained steadfast, using every ounce of his training to stay upright and retaliate whenever an opening presented itself. Their combat became a dance of contrasts, her fluid, serpentine motions meeting his grounded, methodical responses. Where she relied on agility and finesse, he leaned into brute force and endurance. Each blow exchanged reverberated through the arena, echoing off the walls and amplifying the tension. The humans watching could scarcely believe what they were witnessing, one of their own holding his own against a being whose very existence defied logic. At one point, the queen managed to land a glancing blow across his ribs, sending him stumbling backward. The impact sent waves of pain coursing through his side, but he refused to show it. Instead, he used the momentum to pivot and drive his elbow into her shoulder, eliciting a sharp hiss of discomfort from her. For the first time, her composure cracked, her eyes narrowing as she regarded him with newfound respect. "Not bad," she conceded, rubbing the spot where his strike had connected. "But tell me, human, how long can you keep this up? Your kind tires so easily." Her words were meant to provoke, to unsettle him, but they had the opposite effect. Rather than faltering, he seemed to draw strength from her taunts, his movements becoming more deliberate, more calculated. He feinted left, drawing her attention before launching a spinning kick that caught her squarely in the chest. She staggered, momentarily off balance, and for the briefest instant, doubt flickered across her features. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a cacophony of disbelief and exhilaration. Never before had they seen one of their own push an alien opponent to such limits. The soldier, however, paid them no mind. His focus was absolute, his breathing steady despite the exertion. He knew better than to let his guard down, even for a second. One misstep, one lapse in concentration, and it would all be over. As the duel dragged on, the physical toll became evident. Both combatants bore fresh wounds, cuts, bruises, and welts that painted vivid maps of their struggle. Sweat poured down the soldier's face, mingling with streaks of blood from a shallow gash above his eyebrow. The queen, too, showed signs of fatigue, her once fluid movements growing marginally slower, less precise. Still, neither showed any sign of yielding. Finally, after what felt like hours, the queen paused, raising a hand to signal a temporary halt. Her chest heaved as she regained her breath, her golden-scaled skin glistening under the arena lights. "Enough of this," she declared, her voice tinged with both frustration and admiration. "I underestimated you, human. You fight with a tenacity I haven't encountered in centuries. And yet you still underestimate us," he replied, his voice hoarse but unwavering. "This isn't just about strength or skill. It's about willpower. About refusing to give up, no matter the odds." Her expression softened, though only slightly. For the first time since entering the arena, she looked at him not as an adversary, but as something else, something closer to an equal. "Perhaps," she murmured, almost to herself, "but there is more to discover, more to understand." With that cryptic statement, she turned away, signaling for the guards to lower the platform. The humans exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to celebrate or brace for whatever came next. The soldier remained rooted in place, his body aching but his spirit unbroken. Whatever the queen had planned, he knew one thing for certain: this was far from over. In the aftermath of the duel, the atmosphere shifted subtly but unmistakably. The arena fell silent, its previous electric tension replaced by an uneasy stillness. The queen, now seated on a raised dais at the edge of the platform, studied the soldier with an intensity that bordered on fascination. Her earlier mockery had given way to something deeper, a mixture of curiosity and reluctant admiration. Around them, the human soldiers exchanged wary glances, unsure how to interpret the sudden change in her demeanor. "You've earned my attention," she said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice carried none of the condescension from before, only a quiet gravity that demanded respect. "But brute strength and endurance are not enough to sway me entirely. Tell me, human, what drives you? Why do you persist when surrender would be so much easier?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. The soldier hesitated, his gaze drifting briefly to his comrades before returning to hers. He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Because we have no choice," he began, his tone measured yet impassioned. "When everything has been taken from you, your home, your freedom, your future, you either fight or you cease to exist. We fight not because we crave victory, but because giving up means losing ourselves completely." Her eyes narrowed, as if dissecting his response for hidden truths. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "A noble sentiment. But ideals alone cannot sustain a rebellion. You need more than courage and conviction to overthrow an empire." "Then teach us," he shot back, surprising even himself with the boldness of his reply. "If knowledge is what separates us, share it. Show us what we're missing." The queen leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Knowledge?" she echoed softly. "Do you truly believe I would empower the very beings threatening my rule? That I would hand you the tools to dismantle everything I've built?" "No," he countered, stepping closer despite the protests of his battered body. "I believe you're curious, intrigued by what we might become if given the chance. Isn't that why you agreed to this duel? To see if we were worth noticing?" Her lips parted slightly, as though she intended to argue, but no words came. Instead, she rose from her seat, her movements deliberate and unhurried. She descended the steps of the dais until she stood mere feet away from him, her towering frame casting a shadow over his weary form. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, two vastly different beings bound together by circumstance and mutual defiance. "Perhaps," she admitted at last, her voice barely above a whisper, "perhaps I am curious. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, for rulers and rebels alike." Before he could respond, the ground beneath them trembled faintly, accompanied by the distant hum of machinery activating. The queen turned sharply, her golden scales catching the light as she scanned the horizon beyond the arena walls. A series of holographic projections flickered to life, displaying images of distant fleets mobilizing, weapon systems powering up, and entire armies converging on their location. The message was clear: reinforcements were coming. "They know I'm here," she muttered, her tone laced with irritation. "My absence has not gone unnoticed. The realization hit the humans like a tidal wave. If the Queen's forces arrived, their fragile truce would shatter instantly. All progress made in the arena would be erased, replaced by chaos and bloodshed. Panic began to ripple through the ranks, whispers of retreat and escape plans spreading like wildfire. "No," the soldier said firmly, silencing the murmurs with a single word. He turned to face the Queen once more, his posture unwavering despite the exhaustion etched into every line of his body. "If they're coming for you, let them come. Let them see what happens when you stop seeing us as enemies and start treating us as equals." Her laugh returned, softer this time but no less impactful. "Equals? Such arrogance. You mistake tolerance for equality, human. Even now, you cling to notions of fairness and justice as if they hold universal meaning. And you cling to dominance," he retorted, his voice rising with conviction. "But dominance doesn't guarantee loyalty. Fear may keep people in line, but it won't inspire greatness. If you want to rule, you need followers who believe in your vision, not prisoners who obey out of terror." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. It was subtle, fleeting, but unmistakable. She opened her mouth to speak, only to close it again, as if struggling to formulate a response. The hum of approaching ships grew louder, the vibrations in the ground more pronounced. Time was running out. "I don't expect you to trust me," the soldier continued, pressing his advantage. "But I'm asking you to consider the alternative. What happens if you win today? Another planet conquered, another species subjugated. How many more worlds must burn before you realize that power isn't enough?" Her gaze hardened, though not with anger. There was something else there now, a flicker of doubt, perhaps, or the beginnings of introspection. She looked past him, toward the gathered humans, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, she extended a hand, not in aggression, but in offering. "Prove it," she said simply. "Prove that your kind is capable of more than destruction and despair. Convince me that coexistence is possible." The soldier hesitated, staring at her outstretched hand as though it were a lifeline, or a trap. Finally he reached out, his calloused palm meeting her scaled fingers in a tentative grip. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, a spark of connection neither fully understood but neither could deny. As the first ships breached the atmosphere, their shadows darkening the sky, the arena erupted into organized chaos. Orders were barked, weapons drawn, and defensive positions established. Yet amidst the turmoil, the Queen and the soldier remained locked in their fragile alliance, their shared resolve serving as a beacon of hope, or folly, depending on who you asked. What happened next would determine the fate of countless lives, human and alien alike. And as the world braced for impact, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The hum of the approaching fleet grew deafening, a symphony of engines and energy signatures that painted the sky in hues of crimson and gold. The Queen's grip on the soldier's hand tightened imperceptibly, her golden scales shimmering as she turned her head toward the horizon. Her expression was unreadable, a mask of calm authority masking whatever storm brewed beneath. For a moment, the entire arena seemed suspended in time, caught between the inevitability of conflict and the fragile hope of something greater. "Your people will not wait for us to negotiate," she said finally, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "They do not understand restraint." "And yours?" the soldier shot back, his tone edged with defiance. "Will they follow you if you defy them? If you choose peace over conquest?" Her silence spoke volumes. She released his hand and stepped back, her movements fluid yet deliberate. Around them, the humans scrambled to fortify their positions, weapons trained skyward as the first wave of ships descended like vengeful gods. But the Queen made no move to join her kind or issue commands. Instead, she stood still, her gaze fixed on the soldier as though searching for an answer he had yet to give. "You think this is about choice," she murmured after a pause, her words barely audible over the growing din, "but it is about survival. My kind does not forgive weakness, nor does it tolerate dissent. If I stand with you now, it will mean war, not just against your species, but within my own ranks." He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. This wasn't merely a test of strength or strategy, it was a reckoning. Every decision carried weight, every action rippled outward, shaping destinies far beyond their control. And yet, despite the enormity of it all, he felt no fear, only resolve. "Then let it be war," he replied, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "But know this, we're not fighting for dominance. We're fighting for freedom, for both our peoples. You can lead your kind down a new path, one where power isn't built on oppression but on cooperation. Or you can watch everything burn." Her lips parted as though to argue, but instead she exhaled sharply, her shoulders sagging ever so slightly under the weight of his words. It was a fleeting moment of vulnerability, gone almost before it registered, but it told him everything he needed to know. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to see another way forward, but trust was a luxury neither side could afford. A sudden burst of light illuminated the arena as one of the alien vessels unleashed a warning shot, its energy beam carving a smoking trench into the ground mere meters from where they stood. The humans shouted warnings, some diving for cover while others returned fire, their weapons sparking harmlessly against the ship's impenetrable hull. Chaos erupted around them, but the Queen raised a hand, silencing her own forces with a single commanding gesture. "Enough." Her voice carried an authority that transcended species, freezing both sides in place. "This ends here." For a heartbeat, there was only silence, the kind that precedes storms or revolutions. Then, without another word, she strode toward the edge of the platform, her movements imbued with purpose. The soldier followed, his body protesting every step but his spirit unyielding. Together, they faced the descending fleet, two figures dwarfed by the looming specter of war. "This is madness," one of the human commanders hissed, grabbing the soldier's arm as he passed. "You can't trust her. She'll turn on us the moment it suits her." The soldier stopped, turning to meet the commander's desperate gaze. "Maybe," he admitted, his voice low but firm. "But if we don't take this chance, we lose everything anyway. Trust isn't given, it's earned. And right now, we have no other option." Before the commander could respond, the Queen called out, her voice ringing across the battlefield. "Cease fire. All units, hold position." To the humans' astonishment, her command was obeyed. The alien ships hovered menacingly but refrained from further attacks, their weapons trained but inactive. It was a temporary reprieve, bought with her authority, and perhaps her life. She turned back to the soldier, her luminous eyes locking onto his with an intensity that bordered on reverence. "You ask too much of me," she said softly, almost to herself. "And yet, you offer too little. What guarantee do I have that your kind will honor any agreement we make? That you won't betray me the moment my back is turned?" He met her gaze without flinching. "The same guarantee you have, that none of us will survive if we fail. If we're going to build something better, it starts with trust. Not blind faith, but a willingness to try. To risk everything for the possibility of something greater." Her expression softened, though only marginally. There was sadness there, mingled with determination, a recognition of the cost of leadership and the burden of change. Slowly, she nodded, her decision made. "Very well," she said, raising her voice so all could hear. "I propose a ceasefire, an opportunity to negotiate terms. Not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals. If your leader agrees, we will speak. If not—" She let the sentence trail off, leaving the implication hanging heavy in the air. The soldier glanced at his comrades, who exchanged uncertain looks. Finally, the commander stepped forward, his face grim but resolute. "We accept your terms, for now. But know this, if you cross us, there will be no second chances." The Queen inclined her head in acknowledgement, her lips curling into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Fair enough." As the initial chaos subsided, a tense calm settled over the arena. Both sides withdrew to their respective corners, their weapons lowered but their guards firmly up. Negotiations would begin soon, but the real battle had already started. One fought not with weapons, but with words and wills. The soldier found himself standing alone once more, his body aching and his mind racing. He had gambled everything on the hope that the Queen's curiosity and pride would outweigh her instinct for domination. Now, as he watched her retreat to consult with her advisors, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. Trust, he reminded himself, was a fragile thing, easily broken, painfully slow to rebuild. But it was also the foundation of every alliance, every partnership, every act of unity in the face of division. Whether they succeeded or failed would depend not on strength or strategy, but on their ability to believe in each other, even when belief felt impossible. Above them, the alien fleet loomed like a storm cloud, its presence a constant reminder of the stakes. Below, the humans braced themselves, their resolve tempered by exhaustion and uncertainty. And between them stood two unlikely leaders, bound together by a shared vision of a future neither fully understood but both desperately wanted to create. What happened next would shape the course of history, not just for their worlds, but for countless others watching from afar. Peace or annihilation, unity or ruin, the choice lay in their hands. And as the first tentative discussions began, the soldier allowed himself a small, fleeting smile. The negotiations unfolded in a makeshift chamber at the heart of the arena, a neutral space hastily assembled from salvaged materials and alien technology. The air inside was thick with tension, each word spoken carrying the weight of countless lives. Around a circular table sat representatives from both sides, the Queen flanked by her advisors, their iridescent armor gleaming ominously, while the humans occupied the opposite side, their scarred uniforms telling stories of battles fought and losses endured. Between them loomed an unspoken chasm of mistrust, bridged only by the fragile thread of shared intent. The soldier, though not officially part of the human delegation, stood silently against the wall, his presence commanding attention even in repose. His eyes darted between the two groups, reading body language as much as words. The Queen, too, seemed acutely aware of him, her gaze occasionally flickering toward him as if seeking reassurance, or perhaps a challenge. Whatever it was, their connection remained palpable, an invisible tether binding them across the divide. "We propose a cessation of hostilities," began one of the human diplomats, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "In exchange, we demand the withdrawal of your forces from our territories and reparations for the devastation caused." A murmur rippled through the alien advisors, their expressions ranging from disdain to outright hostility. One of them leaned forward, his voice sharp and biting. "Reparations? You presume to dictate terms after resisting our rule for decades? Your species has brought this suffering upon itself." Before the situation could escalate, the Queen raised a hand, silencing her subordinate with a single glance. She turned to the diplomat, her tone measured but firm. "Your grievances are valid, though framed in terms that reflect bias rather than objectivity. Withdrawal is non-negotiable. Our presence ensures stability. However," she paused, her golden eyes narrowing slightly, "we are willing to discuss measures to mitigate future conflict." The room fell silent, the weight of her concession hanging heavy in the air. It wasn't capitulation, it was compromise, offered grudgingly but sincerely. For the first time, the humans exchanged hopeful glances, sensing a crack in the impasse. But hope was fleeting. As the discussions dragged on, the complexities of peace became glaringly apparent. Every proposed solution sparked new arguments, every concession demanded reciprocation. Boundaries were redrawn only to be contested. Resource allocations were debated until voices rose in frustration. The Queen's advisors grew increasingly agitated, their loyalty to her tested by what they perceived as weakness. On the human side, tempers flared as old wounds reopened, memories of loss fueling demands that bordered on impossible. Through it all, the soldier watched, his jaw clenched and fists balled at his sides. He wanted to intervene, to shout over the din and remind them why they were here, to break cycles of violence, not perpetuate them. But he knew better than to disrupt the delicate balance. Instead, he waited, trusting that the right moment would come. It arrived unexpectedly, during a heated exchange over territorial sovereignty. One of the human commanders slammed his fist on the table, his face flushed with anger. "You can't expect us to accept half measures. Either you're serious about change, or this is all just a stalling tactic." The accusation hung in the air, raw and accusatory. The Queen stiffened, her composure faltering for the briefest instant before she regained control. Rising slowly to her feet, she addressed the room, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Enough," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "This endless posturing achieves nothing. If we are to move forward, we must address the root cause of our conflict, not the symptoms." All eyes turned to her, the gravity of her statement sinking in. Even her own advisors fell silent, their skepticism tempered by respect for her authority. She stepped away from the table, pacing slowly as she spoke, her movements deliberate and hypnotic. For centuries, my kind has operated under the belief that strength defines worth, that dominance is the natural order. We have crushed resistance, extinguished rebellion, and imposed our will without question. And yet, she paused, her gaze sweeping over the humans before settling on the soldier. And yet, here we stand, faced with a species that refuses to yield despite overwhelming odds. A species that fights not out of hatred or greed, but out of conviction, out of hope. Her words resonated deeply, stirring emotions long buried beneath layers of fear and resentment. The humans exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to trust her sincerity or brace for another ploy. The soldier, however, felt something stir within him, a flicker of understanding, of kinship. She wasn't apologizing, she was acknowledging. And in doing so, she was offering more than any treaty ever could. "I do not pretend to know how to bridge the gap between us," she continued, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. "But I am willing to try. Not because I believe your kind deserves mercy, but because I believe mine does. Because continuing down this path leads only to ruin, for all of us." The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the faint hum of machinery outside. Then, one by one, the humans began to nod, not in agreement, but in recognition of the olive branch extended. Slowly, tentatively, the atmosphere shifted, the walls of hostility crumbling under the weight of shared purpose. When the meeting adjourned hours later, no formal agreement had been reached. But something far more important had taken root, a fragile foundation of mutual respect. Both sides emerged battered but resolute, their resolve tempered by the realization that peace required sacrifice, from everyone. As the soldier exited the chamber, the queen called after him, her voice quiet but insistent. "Wait." He turned, meeting her gaze with a mixture of caution and curiosity. For a moment, neither spoke, the distance between them shrinking with each passing second. Finally, she broke the silence. "You've given me much to consider," she said, her expression unreadable. "Do you truly believe this alliance can succeed?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I believe it has to. If we fail, there won't be anything left to fight for." Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, a rare glimpse of vulnerability in someone who had always worn power like armor. "Then let us hope failure is not an option." With that, she turned and walked away, her retinue falling into step behind her. The soldier watched her go, his mind racing with possibilities and dangers. They had taken the first step, but the road ahead was fraught with peril. Trust, once broken, could shatter irreparably. Betrayal lurked in every shadow, waiting to exploit weakness. Yet as he looked around at the faces of his comrades, weary but determined, he felt a spark of optimism ignite within him. They were flawed, imperfect beings, bound together by scars and dreams. But they were also survivors, fighters, believers. And sometimes, that was enough. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the arena in hues of amber and violet. In the distance, the alien fleet remained poised, a reminder of the stakes. But for now, the guns were silent, and the world held its breath. Whatever came next, they would face it together.